Hello guys, CodefForge here. Today I would like to share with you a short presentation about state management. I think it will be great to have some background about this topic before starting our journey with the ngrx store in the Angular. So let's move to the agenda. And yeah, in the first place, we'll try to answer the question, what is the application state? Then we'll try to understand what we mean by the state management term. Moving on, we'll talk a little bit about basic concepts like store, actions, and reducers, and also we'll take a closer look at them. With all that knowledge, we'll take a look on the data flow, so we will see how all these elements communicate with each other. At the end, we'll talk a little bit about libraries and about pros and cons of using them. Okay, and the first question is what the application state is. And the state is the result of all the actions that somehow affects our application. By action, we mean something that is changing the data in our application somehow. And this can happen when user click the button after filling the form, or some HTTP request has been accomplished or it failed, or some error has been thrown, right? And I have said that those actions are changing our application data. And this data is the actual state of our application. It is expressed as variables or objects. So what do we mean by state management? And by that we mean a consistent way of transitioning from one state to the next state of our application. So basically, transition is each change of our application data. Transition from one state to another must be consistent, and this is because we do not want to mutate or lose any data of our application. Transition from one state to another should look like this. We have a state and we want to change some data. So we have to create a copy of the existing state. We want to modify this state, and then we want to make a transition from the old state to the new one. And by doing that, we are sure that we don't need any deep comparison of objects, and it has a positive effect on our application performance. About other pros and cons we will talk later. Next on the list are basic concepts. In the popular libraries, we can find some similarities, and those are stores, actions, and reducers. First is store, and this is the place where our application state is living. Most of the time it is a complex object with different properties, which represents our state. It can be accessed from anywhere, and by that we mean every component can directly access the store. It is a single source of truth for our components. And of course, it must have initial state. And what is very, very important, store data or the state itself can be modified only by reducers. After store, we have actions, and actions are unique events sent from the application to the reducers. Each action consists of type and optionally data or payload. Process of sending the action is called dispatching, and the dispatched action must be handled by reducers. Okay, and the last part of our puzzle, reducers. In the reducers, we are defining how our application state changes. So they are responsible for transitioning from one state to another. As we said before, only reducers can modify application state, and they should be implemented as pure functions. By pure function, we mean function with no side effects, and returned value is determined only by inputs of this function. And to summarize everything, we have store, where our application data is living, Actions are telling us what to change in our store, and reducers are responsible for telling us how to change it. Okay, so over here we can see how all these elements are working together. Okay, so we are starting from the component, and let's say component is dispatching some action. And this action, or maybe multiple actions, are sent to the reducer. And the reducer is checking if he can handle this action. And if it can, it is making the transition in the store from the one state to another. And then the component can get this data directly from the store. This is very basic data flow, and just keep it in mind that every library is handling this data flow differently. Okay, and at the end, some pros and cons of using state management approach or state management library. First advantage of this approach is single global and centralized place where our application data is stored. It also can be accessed from any component, so we don't have to pass any data from one component to another. So no more inputs, outputs in the case of the Angular. Also, our application logic is separated from the presentation layer. So we have smaller components which are easier to test, and also logic is easier to test because it is not mixed up with the view. About disadvantages, it is hard concept to understand at first approach, and also syntax of the different libraries can be confusing at the beginning. And of course, we have much more code to write and maintain. At the end, I have a very short list of state management libraries. Of course, for the Angular, we have ngrx store and everything that is connected with it. And for the React, we have Redux and Mobix or Mobex, I have no idea how to pronounce it. Okay, this is everything I have prepared. In the next video, we'll start using ngrx store, so we will see all these elements we have talked about today in action. If you want to see more, remember about subscribing to my channel. And if you just learned something or enjoyed the video, remember about liking it. See you next time.